With the GPU market flood here and prices going lower and lower, today we're going to have a GPU battle. First, I don't think you should probably even buy a GPU at this point, but let's play a little armchair general. If you were to buy a GPU, what would you get? We're going to take a look at the high end, the mid-range, and the lower end GPUs that perhaps if you're in the market for a GPU and you do see a good enough deal, it may actually be a pretty good reason to buy a GPU. Now, I'll say again, I think most people should wait until the new generation comes out, which likely will be at the end of this year, but some of these deals are getting pretty good, and you're probably not going to believe which GPU actually seems like a fantastic deal for pretty much every gamer. First, let's start off at the very high end. I think here, most people that had their expensive GPU most likely bought it already. Let's do a little GPU battle here. 3090 Ti versus the new AMD 6950 XT. I don't think you should get either. I think the 3090 Ti is a little bit too expensive, and by a little bit, I mean way too expensive for the market. Case in point, the EVGA 4013, which is a fine GPU, nothing against it, it retailed when it first came out at over $2,200, and now it's already on sale for $1999, similar to all the other 3090 Ti's. That means that absolutely nobody is buying them. Aside from a few enthusiasts that fitted into their current high-end rig, nobody else is really looking for these GPUs, and of course not crypto miners, way too expensive for what you get. On the other end of the coin, you have the new AMD 6950 XT. Now, even though it's almost half the price of the 3090 Ti, and in many games it actually has pretty close performance, if not better, for traditional rasterization, I still don't think you should buy it. For a 6950 XT, $1,099 being the MSRP, that's still way too expensive because it's only really 5 to 10% better than even a 6900 XT or a 6800 XT. Those can now be found for well under $900, so I think if you really needed a high-end GPU and you wanted a good value for your money, you could probably look at the rapidly declining pricing of the 6900 XT, perhaps even a 6800 XT, which is similar in performance if you can find it cheaply enough. I mean, if you can pay around $800 for a 6900 XT as they start to go down, compared to over, $1,500 to $2,000 for a 3090, I think that's a massive price difference, and you can put up with a little bit less ray tracing performance, and unless you need Nvidia specific technologies, that seems like a pretty good bet. But the high end is definitely a place that's not very fun right now. Things are just way too expensive. Some other GPUs in this very high end, I mean, even the original 3090 has been rapidly going down in price, but that doesn't seem like a very good value at all. The 3080 Ti, you can make an argument if you get it close enough to its MSRP or even under $1,200. I've seen a few EVGA versions on the B stock sell for around the $1,000 range. That's actually not that bad of a deal. 3080 Ti, at least for gaming, is going to be very close to a 3090 and even a 3090 Ti. There's not a huge gap between them. Of course, the 3090 Ti is still faster, but the delta really is not worth twice the amount of money, and some people may prefer the 3080 Ti over an AMD equivalent GPU just because you're going to get better ray tracing, DLSS, and certain technologies that people seem to like better on Nvidia. So as we go down a little bit, what about the RTX 3080? Many can agree in terms of high-end sweet spots at $699. That original Founders Edition was really the golden standard for what a high-end GPU should cost and perform at. Now, pricing is going back down to sort of that level. A lot of these 10 gigabyte AIB GPUs, that's not the 12 gigabyte VRAM version, they're going down to that $700 to $800 range. Definitely not that bad of a GPU if you can get it cheaply enough, and I have seen the 12 gigabyte version quickly start to get in that $800 range as well. In that case, it's almost better than some of the higher end GPUs for the price. When the 12 gigabyte 3080 was over $1,000, definitely not a good buy, but as it gets closer to that $800 to $900 range, you're talking about a GPU that performs almost as well as a 3080 Ti for what is a considerable price savings. Then I do think things start to get pretty interesting around the 3070 3070 and 3070 Ti level, with pricing going down fast. I've even seen some 3070s more expensive than 3070 Ti's. That's how quickly pricing is going down on some models and not on others. Of course, typically if you can get them at equal or cheaper, you do want to get the 3070 Ti. In many cases, for most people, if you're playing at like 1440p, it's going to be one of the best GPUs that you can get. Some of the pricing that's going to be the cheapest is $599 for the Founders Edition, which you can only get at Best Buy, but almost everybody else can now find around the $699 third-party AIB 3070 Ti. For example, they've had them on Newegg, Micro Center, even Best Buy has had stuff like the Asus TUF around that price. So you definitely don't want to pay more than $700 for a 3070 Ti, because at that point you start to get into 3080s, which are going to be a little bit better and probably a better value if you're buying it at this point. And as we get a little bit towards the lower range of GPUs, definitely would not overlook the 3060 Ti. Now, very difficult to find a Founders Edition at $399, but the EVGA 3060 Ti has been actually popping up in stock fairly readily at around $479 from their website, and for performance pretty close to a 3070. That is certainly not a bad price at all. I think most people would still prefer perhaps a 3060 Ti than even some of the newer, like the 6750 XT AMD GPUs, because of all those reasons we mentioned before, where people just prefer Nvidia because of some of the technologies that it offers, and they're going to be a little bit more used to it and just trust the drivers a little bit more. Although it must be said, AMD definitely has made great improvements in the higher end GPUs this generation, but if you really look at the numbers, people still prefer Nvidia overall. And then even though budget gaming has become a lot more difficult lately, definitely you have a lot more options in that better price range under $300 than you did before. RTX 3050, even the 6600 XT, those have been going down in price a considerable amount. Of course, you have the new 6650 XT. Depending on the price that you can get it for, it may make some sense. It definitely performs pretty well. But once again, if you do want to get into something like an RTX 3050, pricing there has improved a considerable amount. And anything else like a 6500 XT, I really just wouldn't recommend it at this point. Never did anyway. Even at the peak of the GPU shortage, that was a really terrible GPU that really probably would have made only a couple of people happy in very niche situations in 1080p gaming. A lot better options now for much cheaper, so we can expand sort of the horizon that we look in. So these are sort of the main GPUs that we're looking at. In my opinion, if you have to choose one GPU now with the idea in mind that eventually you're going to upgrade to the RTX 4000, maybe the RTX 3060 Ti isn't so bad. You're not going to lose as much value if a new GPU comes out later in the year. It's still going to give you pretty nice, impressive performance as long as you don't want to do 4K and max out ray tracing. It's going to be a pretty good GPU, and you can fairly easily now find them for under $500. I think that would fit into most gamers' budgets nowadays, even though it is a little bit expensive. You would have expected to get at least a 3070 or more in the past, but at least for now, this certainly seems to be one of the better deals on the market. If you can find a 3070 Ti as well, you're going to get a little bit more higher end performance. Somewhere between these GPUs, I think, is where you really want to be if you're buying this late into the product release cycles. And like I said, anything much higher end really doesn't make that much sense because of the price, and when they're replaced, they're going to go down in value and be outperformed by the higher end next generation by an even larger margin compared to these more affordable GPUs. Alright guys, so let me know what GPUs you would get in the current market. Of course, I still think most people should wait, but a couple of people definitely will want to get GPUs at these cheaper prices. Let me know what you think. Smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.